Hampshire Network, through a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts, presents The World of the American Craftsman, the world and work of Winslow Eaves. What is a sculptor? How does he live? For Winslow Eaves, sculptor, life is a valley in New Hampshire. Life is the love of a family. Life is art, the transformation of wood, metal, and stone to shapes and forms that express that life, that valley, those loved ones.
It's really fascinating to see this hard, tremendously durable material just melt and flow. And when you're looking at a welded joint, it was almost like being really close to the sun and seeing the elements melt and flow and fume and bubble. It's really fascinating. I mean, just the welding process, being able to model with molten steel, to shape it, and to flow it, and to fuse it, and to take elements that really have no relationship to one another and put them together and make them one and really join them, forever. When I'm about to pour a bronze and I'm a little concerned, my wife always says, well, if it doesn't work out, you can always turn it into a bird feeder. People need titles. I mean, they need a handle, or they need a way into the piece. I don't think that the observer should pay so much attention to the title. I think they should look at the work and try to experience the work directly. What do they think about the piece? Maybe we shouldn't have titles. Maybe we should just have the work stand. Because that's the main thing, how the work affects you. The work itself. Words are one thing, the sculpture is another thing.
Before a piece of sculpture is ready to be exhibited, many hours of detailed work must be done. Then, and only then, can the creation be shown. The temperature is now 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The bronze is in a liquid state and ready to be cast. Cast into a form of soft golden permanency, hard to touch, beautiful to behold. A work of art is ready to be born.
It's not just melting metal and pouring it into a mold. There are weeks of preparation before you can do this. Well, when you have everything set, the metal's right. Of course, you're not quite ready for it, I don't think, ever. There are also many things that can happen to prevent this creation from being born. I don't know why we go through it all. You're going to have a lot of stuff to hold back. Bring it over. That's going to keep cooling on the surface, so I can't keep doing it. Slow, careful.
What's drawing?
Watch the bricks as you come over. Stand back, Ellen. Get over on the other side, Gary. Watch it because hold the pot back with the hole at the same time if you can. Put down on your end. Down. Here we go.
Bronze casting is radiantly beautiful, but physically dangerous. Aesthetically exciting, but emotionally strenuous. When the liquid bronze cools and hardens, the mold is ready to be opened carefully, and the success of the labor revealed.
Right. The bronze casting is a terrifically exciting experience for me and for my family because I have them all involved. It's not a one-man operation. When you have a bronze to pour, it takes 2 or 3 people. And I have a wonderful family. It's an ancient sort of thing that I know why it's still going on. It's just a fabulous experience. I mean, to put these chunks of metal in a pot and to melt them down and take this liquid and pour it in a mold and come out with something. It's just great.
Beautiful reflection.
Looks beautiful. Isn't it?
Wow.
This is better than that.
This is better than good so far.
Yeah, this is great.
Oh, wow.
Look at that.
Yeah.
See, this is thick enough so that where I have a slight pit like that, it's nothing. This all can be taken down, right to the bottom.
Just beautiful.
Boy, that's still hot. I don't see a shrink crack on it.
The communication of the bronze casting process to this young apprentice craftsman is a necessary and important part of the continuation of this ancient craft. Grinding and polishing and hours of gentle handling will be needed before the inherent qualities of this piece will appear.
It's only finished when I'm really satisfied and I feel that it's just as significant and just as interesting as I can make it. Be compared to your children. Yeah, of course, you don't have the same feelings, but I know several artists that don't have children and say that their work sort of takes the place of the children. Well, I don't go that far. I don't feel quite the same way. This is still, cold steel or bronze or wood, and it sort of says something to me, and it responds to working and manipulating and caressing. I enjoy just feeling material. I think that's why I'm a sculptor. I like to feel the shape of things. I don't like to just sort of talk about it or just sort of look at it from a distance. I like to get into it with my hands, look at it through my hands, through touching. Most of what I cut up, most of it goes in the stove. But interesting pieces come along every once in a while, and I just can't burn them. I put them in my barn. I have a stockpile of wood for future carvings. I never carved very much before I came to New Hampshire, at least not wood. I carved mainly stone. But having wood around, so much of it, it's the most plentiful material, I've just become more and more interested in carving wood. I'm actually carving some pieces to be cast in metal. I've been thinking about using sculpture in this future camping area that I might develop around in strategic places. A few of the large pieces I'll probably do right on the stump. First, limb the tree, and with my chainsaw, rough it out. I think people have been more impressed by my larger carvings. I've had several out on the lawn where I've carved them in the summertime. In the winter, I roll them into the barn or studio. I like working out of doors, too.
Simple tools in the hands of a sensitive craftsman will patiently transform this unshaped mass into a form graceful to the eye, challenging to the imagination. In wood, Winslow Eaves finds his identity with nature. From this once living tree, a new vitality will emerge. Hampshire Network has presented the world of the American craftsman, the world and work of Winslow Eaves. This program has been produced through a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts.
to the Kearsarge Valley magazine. I'm Mary Gutzel, and in our continuing effort to bring you the living history of the Kearsarge Valley, we are at Artworks in Potter Place with an internationally acclaimed sculptor, Winslow Eaves, and his wife, we might hear in the background, and dogs and cats, and I don't think we'll hear from this cat, but there are cats and dogs around. And thank you for having us into your home and sharing your life with us and your work. When I was reading your biography, I was inspired. It's amazing. Maybe we should start when you were young, or how you knew you had this talent.
Well, it was, I did my first piece in kindergarten.
Did you really?
I think it was an ashtray for my father, and he never smoked, so it didn't stay around very long. And I just found all the way through school that I enjoyed drawing and modeling with clay, later carving, soap primarily. And my teachers encouraged me, and my mother encouraged me, and I was better at the visual arts, and especially drawing and sculpture, than English and math and science.
You enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was what I really loved to do, and I sort of feel sorry for kids that don't have something that they really love to do, because if you do, you're way ahead of the game, I think. I mean, so that's what I've been doing ever since. In the Army, I went into map making, and boy, we really had to use both eyes through a stereoscope to see, you know, things in 3 dimensions, the landscape, and so I think that that's when I had to start wearing glasses too.
When you were
so
doing
fine.
maps.
Yeah, maps.
Now, you served our country in World War II,
Right.
in the Army.
Yeah. Air Force intelligence. Started out in the engineers, then I was transferred to the Air Force when we were in India, and then went to the Marianas.
Okay, so this
Did
sort of
maps
all
and charts.
fits to how you arrived here.
Well, the owner of the farm that we bought, Marshall Fredericks, bought this old farm in West Andover just before the Second World War, and he was an instructor of mine at Cranbrook Art Academy. And later on, I was attached to an outfit that he happened to train in India.
It's a small
and was
world.
flown over, and so I've seen him off and on. And he had this old farm, and after Faye and I were married in Utica, we wanted to come over to this part of the country in the summertime, and we used the farm, and he was trying to sell it. We didn't buy it then. We had other plans at that point, especially going to Europe for a couple of years. And when we came back, it was still for sale. And when we were visiting him in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, we sort of agreed to buy it.
She sort of fell under the table, she said, though, when you said you would buy it.
Well, you know, I didn't have a job. I had a Fulbright grant in Europe, and then I had the GI Bill, so I, you know, was in school there with all this aid. But let's see, I did, before we went to Europe, I taught sculpture at Munson Williams Proctor Institute in Utica. That's where Faye and I met.
I see.
And actually, after 3 years there, that's when we went to Europe. And while we were there, we did come over here and fall in love with the country, and especially that particular old farmhouse. And it was a fantastic buy at that time, what he was selling it for. He was still making a profit for what, you know, he bought it for.
That was in 1952?
That was 1951, 52, 52, yes,
okay.
right.
Great.
Yeah.
So you went to Paris on a grant. Can you tell us?
Fulbright grant.
Fulbright.
Actually, we went over there, and I didn't get the Fulbright until after we were there. I did have the GI Bill that I hadn't touched, even though I had taught before that. So we were, you know, sure we wanted to. Our plan was to spend a year in France and a year in Italy, but we ended up spending 2 years in France. First year we had our first son.
Oh.
And so that sort of slowed us down a bit.
Children seem to do that.
Yeah. And then the next year we had our second son.
Great.
They were both born
We
there.
were busy. So they were born overseas.
Yeah.
And while you were in Paris, did you study under different people?
Well, I studied pretty much on my own at the Grand Chaumière. That was a school that GIs were entitled to go, and it was approved. But when the Fulbright grant came around, I switched over to the École Nationale de la Beaux-Arts, which is the school for the French student. And I was there for the 2 years.
That's wonderful. Now, you've done a lot of teaching, too, in your history.
Before that, in Utica at the Munson Williams Proctor School of Art. Since being up here, well, I worked with the League of New Hampshire Craftsmen for a while, assisting the director, and then I was hired by Dartmouth 1 day a week as lecturer in art, and then later they instituted some courses in studio work and sculpture. I was teaching sculpture there. Moved to Hopkins Center. I was there 10 years.
Wow. Now, someone termed your art free in spirit. And can you explain that a little bit, what it is to be?
Well, I don't slavishly copy realistic things, like take the cat, for instance. I mean, it's just the nature of the material had a lot to do with the form. It was modeled in ceramic clay. I made a smaller one and modeled it directly in wax for bronze. But this one I made in clay, and it's sort of free in spirit. Well, we've had cats ever since we've been married. Even in Paris we had a cat, so we both know and love cats. And he's sort of a proud cat, I would say.
Yes, he is very proud. Very
a little snooty, like cats can be.
Now, what inspires you? I mean, you work in all sorts of mediums, wood, clay, metals.
Well, I started out, in school, just whatever, the art teacher had, clay. Primarily on a camping trip, I picked up a piece of wood when I was in high school and got into carving.
What materials did you work at when you were a special student at Detroit Art Institute?
Mainly clay. And then to make clay permanent, it either has to be ceramic clay and fired, or you have to make a mold from the clay. I use sometimes an oil-based clay. It never gets hard, so you have to cast from the clay, make a mold and cast it either in, well, you can cast it in plastics or cement or clay, there are a variety of, or wax for bronze.
What is your favorite medium? I mean, or do you have a favorite?
Oh, it's usually what I'm working in. Right now I'm finishing up a wax portrait of former Governor Peterson for the Robert Frost Committee of Plymouth State. And that's going to be unveiled in April 25th in Manchester.
She's smiling over there.
My philosophy. Well, hopefully earn a living with what I like to do most.
Like, right.
Faye, what's my philosophy?
The most independent person I know.
Independent?
And you only want enough money to pay the bills so your wife won't nag about it.
Just enough money to get by, right?
Enough money to do the next piece of sculpture.
I see.
And I really believe that if it were forbidden, he would go underground and still do it. I mean, it's his life.
Well, I think
He loves everything about sculpture. He's welcoming to every sculptor. He's very giving.
Very giving, yes.
I guess that covers a lot, but when I was brought up in a particular religion, and the idea was that if you're not good, if you don't do right, if you do bad things, you're not going to go to heaven. And I figure that that shouldn't be why you do good things, for this reward of heaven. My philosophy is you do right because it's right, and you be as good as you can because it's the way to be. And I don't know what's going to happen, you know, when we go. There are all kinds of theories and a lot of wishful thinking. But you know, I think we should just do the best we can. It's a marvelous world. I hope we don't wreck it. I think that's a possibility. With overpopulation, I think that's a serious possibility. That if population and if, you know, people are not more human, look what they're doing around the world. I mean, it's really terrible.
We should love each other and pass that on.
Right.
Well, you're a great inspiration, and thank you for sharing everything with us. We'll take a tour around your gallery.
I'd like to show you my little old workshop downstairs where I have a couple of heads, and I have everything down there that Faye doesn't want up here. She's got the best, the cream of our collection right here.
It is a gallery right in here. It's beautiful. It's just amazing.